what I do is, as I'm a computing teacher in an independent secondary school up in Aberdeen called Robert Gordon's College. I've been there just over a year. Previously I was at Inverurie Academy, which is just west of Aberdeen, and I was there for 5 years and always working in the computing department. But recently my role has become that of principal teacher of learning for ICT across the whole school. So, it's taken my interests and my experience and kind of turned it into a perfect job almost.
Good, that's fantastic. And how long have you been doing this for then, Ian, altogether?
7 years. This is my set.
Very good, very good. And what sort of age are the pupils that you're engaging in? What sort of age would they range from?
Typically, I teach secondary, which is about 12, 13-year-olds up to 18. But I do get the occasional opportunity to teach the primary schools as well. So, upper primary 6, so maybe 10, 9, 10, which is good.
So quite a range then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, good. And what do you think are the things that make a good classroom teacher?
Well, being quite enthusiastic about your subject for a start, and be able to get the best out of the children in front of you, I think is core to being a good teacher. I mean, I'm quite biased because I'm a computing teacher, but ICT plays a big part in that, in keeping them motivated and keeping them excited about their learning. But you can tie almost any sort of topic at primary or secondary into computing or you're using ICT to just make it a bit more exciting, a bit more relevant to them. And for me, that's the kind of the core aim as a teacher.
Good stuff. And according to your biography, you have a particular interest in the use of games-based learning. Can you tell us a little about the major projects you've been working on, such as Little Big Planet and Safari Photo Africa?
Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky. I do get the opportunity to tie in computer games. So what we've got a consularium in Scotland, which is Education Scotland run this sort of area where there's lots of games consoles which are available to all Scottish teachers in state schools. And so while I was at Inverurie Academy, I worked with them and some members of my local authority on this project using PlayStation 3s, and that was using the game Little Big Planet. So this was a few years ago, but basically it allowed me to take a class of sort of 17-year-olds to the local primary school and work with the primary 1 class on building a level for the game based on Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And so the primary ones were basically getting involved in creating the pictures for the levels, because in Little Big Planet, I don't know, you can use stickers and you can create your own objects and manipulate them. So as well as having to learn the platform and the software, these 17-year-olds had to speak to the primary ones. They had to look at their development skills and the ability range, and they had to do testing. So it was really quite an in-depth project. It took about 3 months in total. And I ended up presenting at a conference in Dundee, which was looking at improving attainment through use of technology. And it went down really well, but I think the sort of the main thing that the kids got out of the Little Big Planet project was the fact that they could, they've got some leadership skills. They know how to communicate better with people who are maybe not their same age as them, but they're also considerate to the sort of the feelings of others as well. But the best thing that came out of it was when they did the final test or the final release to the primary 1 class, and it was about the end of April, start of May. So we took all the PlayStations down to the local primary school. We set them up. We gave all the primary 1 class their wireless controllers, and obviously they test the 17-year-olds, the 50s had tested it quite a lot, and so what they had high scores at the end of each level, and the primary ones just wiped the floor with them. Within about 5 minutes, they'd realised how to get the highest score, and they'd absolutely knocked them off the top of the leaderboard. So it was really good. But the primary ones got a lot out of it because they were getting the chance to work with, kids a lot older than them. There was a bit of mentoring going on both directions. Yeah. And I think everyone got a lot out of it, which was great.
Good.
In a sort of related, the year before that, we just used PowerPoint, and we made sort of interactive storybooks. But just getting that opportunity enabled a few of the previous years to actually get into childcare and use that as a portfolio piece. typically I've worked with primary 1 classes, and we've done sort of peer reading, but electronically. So it helps them sort of see what they're good at and maybe pushes them forward. With regard to Safari Photo Africa, I used that last December with my primary 7 class at Robert Burns College, and it was just because their class teacher was focusing on Africa as a project. So I saw them once a week for an hour, and we were creating podcasts, but not really linking it into the class teacher. So I knew about Wild African Safari on the Nintendo Wii through my links with the Consolarium, and I found something for this laptop which would enable me to play it with them in class, because we don't have that much games consoles in school at the moment, because it's quite a new area for them. Yeah. So I brought in the laptop, and basically the whole class were journalists, so they had to sort of keep a diary of the animals they saw, what happened, did the lion attack them, or what happens when you get too close to an elephant. And so they kept notes of this, and they kept little sort of individual diaries, and then used those to create news articles or stories, which they then read as a podcast, and we made this class radio show, which was sort of a combination of all their stories. But it was something that if I had the chance to teach primary 7 again, I would do in a shot. Yeah. It worked really well at motivating them, and it helped them understand and tie into what they were learning in other classes, and with their main class teacher for other subjects.
Very good, very good. I'm sure they loved that then.
Yeah.
And you're also a keen user of Edmodo and Class Dojo in your computing classes. How do they work, and what sort of feedback have you got from your pupils on those? Do they enjoy those?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Class Dojo is a sort of ongoing trial just now. So I started at sort of middle of September with my form class. I've got an S1 form class or register class this year. And it's just to try and get them more engaged in the sort of 10 minutes I see them in the morning. So I noticed sort of early on in the year, as we start at the end of August, so early on in the year, they were coming in, they were being nice and polite, but they weren't really engaging. They were leaving the work for me to be basically like taking attendance and reading the register and issuing all the letters, and they were quite passive. So I wanted to get them a bit more interactive. So Class Dojo lets me do that. Good. Because it's basically, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's basically a web screen which has got all the people's names and little monster avatars, sort of cartoon Moshi Monster style avatars. And you can award them positive behaviour points or negative behaviour points. But you set up the behaviours you want to promote or work on reducing. And it was brilliant. I mean, instantly, they get a point for being on time. Not that time, being on time was an issue, but they get a point for being on time. Yeah. There's a bit of audio feedback, and a sort of visual banner comes up on the screen on my smartboard, so they know that they've got an award. Yeah. And then we sort of I worked with the class and came up with, how many points should you get if you read the bulletin, how many points should you get if you take the chairs down off the tables and put the computers on in the classroom, recycle. And so they've worked on the sort of reward system, and so it's been going for about 5 weeks now, and a lot of them are edging up to about 50 class points, and we're going to have a sort of another step of the trial, which is when they can log in from home. So if they've got a mobile device, or if they want to log in home, they can use this access code and they can see their points total, what they got awarded points for, and they can actually type in some feedback. So if they get a negative mark because they were late, they can type in, I was late because I missed the bus, or my dog ate the homework, or something like that. And the idea is that there's a bit of sort of a two-way communication between the teacher and the student, but it also allows the parents to be able to sort of log in and say, oh, right, here's an instant report on how my child's doing in the class. And because they're awarded points, it's a bit of gamification of learning.
Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect example.
Yeah, and it's going really well so far. Other teachers in my school showed it to them. I introduced it to them in end of May, start of June, and so there's 2 other teachers using it with set specific classes to see how that impacts on their behaviour or their their homework rates and things like that. And we're going to just come together and see that something we want to roll out across the whole school. But so far it's going really, really well. With regard to Edmodo, I'm using that with sort of upper secondary school, so 15, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, and that's basically Facebook for schools, and it allows them to communicate with the class teacher. At the moment, we don't have a means of pupils getting access to files outside of school.
Yeah.
So if they want to take something home, like a PowerPoint, they have to copy it onto a memory stick and then take it away.
Transfer.
Yeah, exactly. So we had to we set up this Edmodo site primarily to share files with them. But it turns out you can do an awful lot more, and the kids get really into the dialogue, the conversation. We've used it for uploading their assignments and keeping a portfolio of their work. But I'm really interested at the moment in the badges system that Edmodo offers. And I was at a conference in Edinburgh for CAS Scotland Computing School 2 weeks ago, and Doug Belshaw was there from Mozilla Foundation, and he was speaking about use of open badges across a number of platforms, but Edmodo was something that we were quite keen to tie into the open badges idea, so that people have a sort of portfolio of awards and achievements that they can take on to work or college or university, and just build up this this portfolio of things that they've done but don't necessarily have a certificate for. So it's a more holistic view of the child. So it's something that's really I'm really interested in just now. It's maybe not sort of tied directly to game-based learning, but Edmodo apps are going to come out in the UK in the next year.
Yeah.
And I think that will start to sort of see a move towards more game-based learning for definitely for my classes in Edmodo, if I can get access to do some programming.
Very good, thank you for that. And I know that you mentioned earlier that you bring the laptop and that into your classroom.
Yeah.
Do you use any other devices in your classroom? Some schools that have been talking with the teachers, or they've got favourite devices. Would there be any favourite devices that you would use in your classroom, or is that maybe something for the future?
It's definitely something for the future, and it's something that is part of this new role that I'm doing, but I'm actively investigating. So at the moment, it's we're tied to a wired network, but there is some work going on in the school at the moment to build for a new building. So Wi-Fi is going to be hopefully part of that, but it's going to be a few years down the line.
Yes.
So in the meantime, the policies for the use of mobile phones is changing in a lot of schools, not just our one. There's a really interesting Test Scotland article in August about the use of ICT in schools, and just showing the difference between all the local authorities. So there's a wide range of sites that are being blocked or unblocked, and mobile devices being allowed or not allowed. And I think educators are starting to realise that. Well, I think teachers always realise, but I think managers are starting to realise that the kids have access to something far more powerful in their pockets than they have on a desk in a computing lab. And there's something that really struck me actually in June. I was covering an English class, and one of the fourth year pupils asked me a question about the topic. It was something that I didn't know the answer to. It was a word that I kind of vaguely knew, but I was trying to be smart, and I said, look, let's just Google it. Let's find out what it is. We'll show you a video. And by the time I got to the smartboard and turned on the smartboard, and I was waiting to type it in, she says, okay, I found it on my phone.
Yeah.
Can I watch it? Why not? So policy is becoming, it's not keeping up with the developments in technology, and I know my school is definitely focused on changing that policy and improving the policy to just take into account the fact that the kids will sort of move between classes and whip their phones out as they move between classes, and they will check their email, and they will post some messages on social networking sites whenever they can. And why don't we harness that rather than try to block it?
Block it, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And just if you could tell us, Ian, where you would see, or where you hope to see education in 10 years' time. I think by what you're saying there is that obviously you'd like to see maybe a lot more open technologies and that being used and things like that. Would that be right in saying?
Yeah, I mean it's quite it's quite a challenging thing to say where you see education in 10 years' time, because there's a big push just now for your open courses and your online courses where you can get credits or get certificates, and you could say that there's definitely a move towards that. And I know in about 4 or 5 years ago there was a lot of people in my local authority when I was in Aberdeenshire saying that this is the future. Teachers will Skype up to classes basically, and that will allow them to teach to multiple schools in the same authority. And all you need then is someone just to be the crowd control and to make sure that the homework comes in. I think to an extent, that's going to continue, and I think that will be experimented with. But I think from experience, you still need to have someone, regardless of whether you split the classroom or you have all your videos on YouTube or Khan Academy or whatever. You still need someone in the class that knows a bit about your subject.
Yeah.
Because you need that communication and sort of the one-to-one discussions that you just can't get with sort of pre-recorded video or audio. So I think we're just going to take advantage of the developments in technology. There will be sort of more multimedia access to videos, and there will be games that are much more tied to the sort of learning outcomes that schools need them to be tied to. But at the same time, there should be a lot more fun in sort of taking part in these games. And I think commercial off-the-shelf games can teach people who make sort of the serious games a lot of tricks to the trade. Sorry, there's a reason why things like Call of Duty, while it's not particularly it's badged as an 18 game or a 15 game. It's got a lot. It keeps it. It's got a big fan base, and instead of ignoring that, I think people who develop games and people who look at how they can motivate their children and just grab their attention should be looking at these games and say, well, why is that exciting to them? And I don't know, but I think in 10 years they'll start to work towards that. I love reading the Horizon report that comes out every year as well, just to see where it's heading, and to have some game-based learning is a big thing in the next few years. And I hope it becomes a big part of each subject, not just computing, because that's the easy option. But and the same, not just primary. My daughter, who's 8, she's had a brilliant class teacher for a few years who he's got a fantastic range of kit. He's got a PlayStation and an Xbox and a Kinect and a smartboard, and he uses them for things like PE, so they do dance games in the morning to start the day, and they have maths games, and so he uses all these commercial games to sort of augment his learning and teaching, which I think is amazing, and my daughter is the bit better for it. But he's like a very rare instance in the school, and I found that at my last school as well. There's lots of people who are excited about games-based learning, but a lot of people who think, you just hear the word game and think that that's somehow dumbing down education, which it's not. It's teaching them. It depends how you use it, but it's teaching them something in a different way. And it just needs someone to get open-minded enough to give it a go and then see the benefits. And if it doesn't work for you, it's just a strategy. You can try something else. But I think more open-minded educators in the next 10 years, and sort of things like this where you get to have discussions over Skype or social media. That's been a big sort of push for me in the last couple of years. It's really on, actually.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It is. That's lovely. And finally, our last question for you today is, if you could, in your own mind, sum up education in one word for us.
This was the contentious one last night. I was having this discussion with my daughter.
Yeah.
Because you can write out definitions, and I've got about 6 or 7 definitions, but summing it up in a word is quite difficult. But I've kind of settled on opportunity, I think, because my daughter comes up with some amazing sort of analogies, but she says, this was after a long sort of conversation, it's a bit like being a newborn baby, and you're only able to see a short distance in front of your face, and you're making connections with people in that range. But if you realise there's something beyond that, you know, in the sort of fog, that's sort of out with your current sort of limits, maybe self-imposed limits, and you want to go beyond that. I think education, she thought education was kind of related to that, which was quite deep. I felt she'll be over the moon that I've used the analogy.
Yeah, you could tell her we said thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.